Hello everyone, good morning. This is Waris Karim again with a quiz on problem solving and exercises on chapter 2 of the Garrison textbook. This is for my Accounting 219 managerial accounting students at Alabama A&M University. Guys, hi. I noticed that after I posted these quizzes and assignments, not many of you have actually completed, and more importantly, not many of you have even attempted it. So I thought, let me go over some of those questions and show you the solutions, or show you different ways of approaching these problems. So let's focus on the quiz of chapter 2. It's on Blackboard. It's called a quiz. Then it says problems and exercises from chapter 2. So it has 9 problems, small problems, reasonably small, 9 of them for 15 points. So let's go over some of those and just hang in there. Problem number 1 is about Braveman Company. It says Braveman Company has 2 manufacturing departments, finishing and fabrication. They are predetermined overhead rates in fabrication and in the finishing. Well, in finishing and fabrication are $23 per DLH, direct labor hour, and 110% of direct material cost, respectively. So it means it is $23 for finishing department and 110% of material cost for the fabrication department. And the company's direct labor wage rate is $29 per hour. So we are given material cost, labor cost, and they also asked us to find out the total manufacturing cost. So to have the total manufacturing cost, you need to add material, labor, and also manufacturing overhead. All right. But to get to manufacturing overhead, you'd have to find out the overhead rates. Now, the rate for one of the departments, one of the 2 departments, the finishing department is given. It's $23 per labor hour, but it is not given for the fabrication department, because fabrication department's predetermined rate is 110% of labor. So if you pay $100 for labor, $100 for labor, you'd be applying $110 for overhead, for manufacturing overhead. But you need to know the labor rate. The labor wage rate is $29 an hour. So $29, if we pay $29 an hour, then we're going to find out how many hours they work, because we're given the labor cost. So based on the labor cost, we're going to find out the hours of work, meaning how many direct labor hours have been used by the 2 departments. And more important, another thing is the fabrication department's overhead rate is 110% of direct materials cost. So their materials cost is actually given $100. So $100 of material cost means $110 of overhead. All right, so let's look at the requirements. The first one says, what is the total manufacturing cost assigned to a particular job? So the data given is for job number 700. You'd have to find out the overhead, because material is given, so just add the 2 materials. Material for finishing department is $475. For fabrication is $100, so just add the 2 materials cost. So that would be $575 altogether. Then we have direct labor. For finishing is $232, and for fabrication $116. So just add the 2 numbers, you'd get the total labor cost. And now overhead. So overhead is $23 per labor hour for the finishing department. But how many hours did labor work in the finishing department? We don't know, not given. But we know the labor cost and we know hourly rate. So use these 2 information to find out the number of hours that labor worked here. So we see the labor cost is $232. If we divide it by our labor's hourly rate, which is $29, we'll find out how many hours they worked. So let's divide $232 by $29. And you'd find, I think, about the amount is going to be, I think, about $8 or 8 hours, or yeah, it's going to be 8 hours. So if you divide 232 by 29, you'll get the hours, number of hours that people work in the finishing department. So that's 8 hours. Okay, 232 divided by 29 gives you 8. So based on that, we apply the overhead. So now find out the total cost of the job. So I would say the way I'd calculate it, I'd have materials $475 for one department and $100 for the other. So add the two, labor $232 and $116 for the two departments respectively. So add the two, and then for overhead, we have 5 hours at the rate of $23 per hour. So multiply 23 by 5 and assign it to finishing department's overhead. And then we know the fabrication's total materials cost, and we know the percentage, which is 110%. So for fabrication department, the applied overhead is going to be $100 times 110%. So it would be $110. So if we add these 6 numbers in total, 6 means 475 plus 100, 232 plus 116, then 23 times 5, 23 times 8, which would be 184. 23 times 8, 184, and then 110% of 100. 100 is our materials cost for the fabrication department. So 110% is $110. So add the two. So that would be numbers 5th and 6th numbers, and that would be our total manufacturing cost. So total materials cost is 575. Labor cost for the two departments together is 348, and the overhead cost or overhead applied for finishing was 184, and for fabrication would be $110. So the two together is 294. So the three elements of costs adding together is 100, added together is total manufacturing cost is $1,217. Now divide that by how many units were there. We are told that in requirement 2, if job 700 consists of 5 units, then what is the unit product cost for this job? So now divide that total cost, which was 1,217 divided by 5, you'd get the unit cost, which would be $243.40. So that's question number 1. Let's go to question number 2. In number 2, it's on Landon Corporation. They also use job costing. All the problems in this problems and questions in this quiz are based on chapter 2, which is of course job costing. So here we are told that they use a job order costing system, and at the beginning of the year they estimated the following. They said that their direct labor hours required to support all their operations would be 135,000. Machine hours required would be 67,500, and fixed manufacturing overhead is $378,000. Variable manufacturing overhead rate per DLH, direct labor hour, is $4.20, and variable rate for machine hour is $8.40 per hour. Now, at this point, I'd like to draw your attention to this, that this is the first time we are seeing a separation between fixed manufacturing overhead and variable manufacturing overhead. So the two together is the total manufacturing overhead. Now, there are two ways you can solve it. You can get the predetermined overhead rate. The easier one, I would say, is leave the variable rate as it is. For example, for direct labor hour, the variable rate per hour is $4.20. So let's have the variable rate, and then simply find out the hourly fixed rate or fixed manufacturing overhead per hour. So total fixed manufacturing overhead estimated is for the whole year is $378,000. So if we divide it by our estimated direct labor hours, which was 135,000, we would get our hourly rate. So divide $378,000 by 135,000 hours, and you'd get an hourly rate. Then that rate plus the $4.20 would be your total hourly manufacturing overhead. So that hourly rate is, if we divide 378,000 by 135, we're going to get $2.80, 2.8. So 4.2 plus 2.8 makes it $7 an hour. And then use the same process, leave the variable rate for machine hour, which was $8.40, leave the variable part as it is, and then find out the fixed component, find out the hourly rate for the fixed part. The fixed overhead, again, the same number estimated is $378,000. If you divide it by estimated machine hours for the year, which is 67,500, you'd get an hourly rate. So that hourly rate happens to be $5.60 per hour. So $5.60 plus $8.40 together is $14 per hour. So that's one way of doing it. Let me show you how you need to do it. So you can see here, our fixed manufacturing overhead Let's take a look. How do you calculate the fixed manufacturing overhead? The predetermined overhead rate, POHR, we're going to use. The predetermined overhead rate means variable and fixed together is this per direct labor hour is variable rate plus the fixed rate. The fixed rate is fixed overhead, estimated overhead or budgeted overhead divided by number of hours that we're planning to work. So that gives us, the variable rate was $4.20 and this gives us $2.80. So the two together is $7. And based on the machine hours, variable rate is $8.40, leave it aside, calculate the fixed component. So $8.40 plus $5.60, that the two together is $14. So this is a better way. This is my way. You can also do it in a different way, as I saw the solutions, they have done it that way. They estimated the total. So what they did is they multiplied the variable rate by those hours. So they kind of grossed up. So the variable rate of per labor hour, for example, was $4.20. So they multiplied $4.20 by $135,000 and got a big number, and then added that to the estimated fixed overhead of $378,000. So the two together is a big number. Then they divided it by the denominator, which is 135,000 direct labor hours. And the answer is still the same. The answer is going to be $7. And if you repeat the process for machine hours, then they multiplied the $8.40 variable rate by the estimated machine hours that they're planning to work. So multiply the variable rate by number of hours that you want to work, get the answer, and then add $378,000 of fixed costs, fixed overhead costs, divide the total by 67,500 machine hours. So you get $14 again. Anyway, what is important is to actually find out the predetermined overhead rate. All right, once we have that, now let's approach the requirements. The first one says, assume that Landon has historically used a plant-wide predetermined overhead rate with direct labor hours as the denominator or allocation base. So now let's focus on just labor hour. And they said compute the plant-wide predetermined overhead rate, which you have already calculated. It's going to be $7. Then compute the total manufacturing cost for job number 550. So what's the total manufacturing cost for this job? We're going to find out how much material was given, how much labor was issued, and how many labor hours people worked, then multiplied by 7, or how many machine hours they worked and multiplied by 14. You're going to see the same. All right, so let's use the direct labor hours as the allocation base for the first time. So for this particular job number 550, the company assigned $196 of direct material. So have that 196, punch it in your calculator, and then the total direct labor cost was 238. So punch that in too. And direct labor hours was 15 hours. So people work 15 hours, multiply 15 by 7, you get $105. So add 196, 238, and 105, and that's your job cost. And then a moment later, they're under requirement 2, they're going to say, well, now we decided to use machine hours, and now please find out how much what is the total job cost for this particular job. So requirement A was predetermined overhead rate, which I said was $7. Compute the total manufacturing cost for this job would be 196 plus 238 plus 7 multiplied by 15, or 15 hours multiplied by $7 per hour. So that would be your total cost of this job. Then if Landon uses a markup percentage of 200% of its total manufacturing cost, what selling price would you establish? So whatever the answer to requirement B is, then times it by 2.0 multiplied by 2, that would be your markup. So if your cost is say $300, your markup is going to be $600. So the total estimated selling price is going to be $900. That is draconian to try 200% markup. All right, it's up to them. Now come to requirement 2. Here it says that no, we don't want to use labor hours anymore. Let's use machine hours. Again, compute the predetermined overhead rate, which is said already calculated to be $14. And I've shown you how it was $14. It was the variable rate of 8.4 plus a fixed rate. Fixed rate was $378,000 divided by 67,500 machine hours. All right, so the two together was $14. So that's the predetermined overhead rate using machine hours as the denominator, as the allocation base. Then number B, compute the total manufacturing cost of this job. So the total cost is going to be materials of 196, labor 238, and overhead would be 5 times 14. So 5 14s are 70 $70 of overhead. Remember, under labor hours, it used to be 105. So now see, as we change the allocation base, the cost, the estimated cost of a job changes, which means, which actually shows us that overhead is, after all, subjective. Overhead can be manipulated, because if it was a universal number, then there should have been just one answer. What is the cost of doing this job? So now we can't say that, well, the cost of doing this job is this, depends, depending on, is this, if you use labor hours the allocation base, but if you use machine hours as the allocation base, then the cost is lower. So it looks like the cost of this particular job is lower if you use machine hours, because overhead here is $5. Sorry, $5 times $14 an hour. So 5 times 14 is $70. Under requirement A, it used to be 15 hours at the rate of $7 an hour. So that was $105. Anyway, so there would be some difference under between requirements 1 and 2. So we got the total manufacturing cost of this job. And then if they use 200% markup, just add the markup. So if your cost is, as I said, 300, add $600 markup. So that's how you solve number 2. Let's go to number 4 and see how we can solve it. All right, number 4 is a company called FICAL. They have 2 manufacturing departments. One is assembly and the second one is testing and packaging. Let's call it TNP. So assembly and TNP departments, the predetermined overhead rates for the 2 departments are given. One is $25 an hour, or $25 per direct labor hour, and the other department is $21 per direct labor hour, fine, respectively. And their wage rate is $27 per hour. All right. So the materials assigned to the 2 departments are $405 and $51 respectively. So add the 2, labor $297 and $54 respectively, add the 2. Now what is the total manufacturing cost assigned to job number N60? So the only other element that's left is overhead. So how much overhead you're going to assign? If you now know the hours, if you know the machine labor hours, then you have the rate, you just multiply the 2. The rates are $25 per direct labor hour for the first department, assembly, and $21 per direct labor hour for the testing and packaging department. All right, but we don't have the hours, labor hours. And well, in a sense we do, because we know the labor cost and we know the hourly labor rate. So the labor cost for the assembly department is $297 and the hourly rate is 27. So divide 297 by 27, you'd get $11 hours of work, 11 hours in the assembly department, and then $54 by 27 gives you 2 hours in the TNP, testing and packaging department. So we have the 2 hours, one is 11, another is 2, and now multiply 11 by their corresponding hourly overhead rate, which was $25. So 11 times 25 is your overhead applied to the assembly department, and 2 hours multiplied by 21, that'll be $42. That's your manufacturing overhead assigned to the testing and packaging department. So we now have 2 materials costs, 2 labor costs, and 2 overhead costs. Simply add the 6 numbers, you get the total cost of the job. And then if the job has 10 units, then divide the total cost by 10, you get the unit cost. All right, so let's look at number 6 now. I'm skipping one in the middle. So number 6 is about Meekly Company. Their plant-wide overhead rate is $23 per direct labor hour. All right, we got the overhead rate, and their wage rate is $11 an hour. Perfect. The following information is available for job number A500. Materials of 260, labor of 165. So if labor is 165, immediately divided by $11 of our hourly wage rate. So 165 divided by 11 gives you 15 hours. So people work for 15 hours there. What's the total manufacturing cost? Well, the material 260 plus labor 165 plus overhead. Overhead would be how many hours you had? 15 hours times the hourly overhead rate is 23. So multiply 23 by that 15 and you get the total cost assigned to the job. And if it consists of 80 units, what is the unit cost? So divide everything by 80, you'd get the unit cost. All right, let's look at number 8 now. It's about Harris Company. Harris Fabrics computes its plant-wide predetermined overhead rate annual on the basis of direct labor hours. Fine. At the beginning of the year, they estimated 35,000 direct labor hours to work, and the required to support the required level of production. The company also estimated total overhead, total fixed overhead, fixed manufacturing overhead of $589,000. And we need to find out the variable rate, the variable manufacturing overhead rate of $3 per direct labor hour. So as I said before, while solving, I think number 1 and 2, that if you have variable and fixed, then don't touch the variable, keep it as is. So that's $3. Find out the hourly rate for the fixed component, or fixed hourly manufacturing overhead rate, which is $589,000 divided by estimated hours of work. The estimated hours of work was 35,000. So 589,000, or estimated fixed manufacturing overhead, divided by estimated number of direct labor hours, which is 35,000. So that would give us an hourly rate. Then use that, add that to the variable rate of $3, you'd get the total predetermined overhead rate. Whereas Harris's actual manufacturing overhead cost was a different number, $758,000, $939, and its actual total labor was 35,500. Actual hours, you can see, was little more, 35,500 hours. All right, but we don't know what the actual is going to be until we end the year. So we keep applying the hourly rate, whatever the hourly rate we are going to find, and we keep applying it on every hours that we work. So eventually we're going to probably have an over application, because we're going to be applying it for 35,500 hours. All right, but we may not have over application because the actual overhead seems to be hugely 589. Well, let's see. All right, so compute the company's planned predetermined overhead rate, which is one of the easiest, because we already have the variable rate of $3, plus just punch in the estimated fixed overhead amount, which is 589. So 589 divided by 35,000, and whatever that is, 589 divided by 35,000 is going to be, let me calculate, 589,000 divided by 35,000. So that gives us 16.83. So 16.83 plus the 3 that we already have there. So that will give us 19.83. So check it. 19.83 is your answer. But how much easier can this be? So the last one is exercise number 9. It says it's about Tech Solutions, a consulting firm. They use job order costing. I think quite rightly they do this, and their direct materials consist of, they told you what materials consist of and what labor is consist of. That's a red herring. We do not necessarily need it to solve these problems. Then in the second paragraph, we are told that Tech Solutions computes its predetermined overhead rate annually on the basis of direct labor hours. Fine. At the beginning of the year, they estimated 85,000 direct labor hours to work. That's also good. And the company also estimated $935,000 of fixed overhead rate. So immediately find out the fixed rate. The total fixed overhead amount is $935,000, and that's divided by hours that we like to work, which is 85,000. So the hourly rate we have is $11. So that's the fixed component. Fixed is $11, and the variable is 0.5, means 50 cents per direct labor hour. So we add the 50 cents with the 11, we're going to get $11.50 as our total predetermined overhead rate. The firm's actual overhead was blah blah, $959,000. The actual labor was different. All right, so compute the predetermined overhead rate, which is already done. It's going to be $11.50. And then during the year, the company started and completed Xavier company engagement, consulting work, and the following information was available. So we're given material cost, which is 44.1, labor cost 38, and direct labor hours worked was 340,000. So multiply 340, sorry, not 340,000, just 340 multiplied by 11. So that would be your applied overhead. So I'd say 11, it's not 11, it would be $11.50 total. The 11 was fixed and 50 cents is variable. So $11.50 times 340 gives us $3,910 of overhead. So if we add the 2, 3, we're going to get the total cost of the project. So that's all about your chapter 2 quiz. I hope you can now solve the rest of the questions and enjoy your work. So I'm going to come with similar ones for some of the other chapters in due course. I'm trying to catch up with these videos, and I hope you find them useful. So please watch them, and please let me know if there is any other way I can help you. All right. Enjoy your day. Have fun doing quizzes.